Hi, I'm James. I'm from Forbies Marketing. I'm here today to talk to you about international targeting. Now, it's really important when going international, especially small, medium, or large businesses, that you take into consideration a lot of things. One being hosting, one being your URL structures, your audience targeting, lots of different things. But what I'm here today is to talk to you about my top tips for going international. So the first point is hosting. So it's really important when looking to target another market that you get this right really early, so then you can build on that moving forward. So first one, root domain. Now a root domain is really good for those larger companies. A, because you've got the .de, which means that that is actually really well targeted to that country. And B, when a user actually looks at that domain, they'll see that it's really targeted, and they can see that you've invested a bit of time in actually making it targeted towards that country. The downside to a root domain is that if you have a root domain like this for maybe Germany, maybe .fr for France, the power that's built up in the German market, the French market, doesn't quite filter back to maybe as an example here, forbiesmarketing.com, because they're all individual domains. Subdomain. Now, although .de, maybe fr. the URL does all filter back into the top level domain, it won't be as targeted towards each country as .de is. This is because subdomains are part of forbiesmarketing.com, whereas this version here are their own unique URLs, domains rather. Subfolder, my personal favourite and probably the most ideal hosting option for small to medium large sized businesses is a subfolder. So the reason for this is that having a subfolder, say your URL, /de, /fr, /au, means that all of these different subfolders will build up a certain amount of weighting. The benefit to having them in a subfolder is that all of that weighting that's built up in all those different countries then filters back into the overall domain. So in this case, /de would filter back into forbiesmarketing.com. I like to see it as kind of a tree with lots of branches. The tree being the actual domain, the subfolders being the branches gathering a lot of nutrients and then filtering back into that tree. My biggest tip though for hosting is Webmaster Tools. When targeting a different country with a different domain, it's really important that you refer to Webmaster Tools and say, okay, forbiesmarketing.com /de, that's actually targeting the German market. And you can go into Webmaster Tools and you can say, this subfolder should target Germany, this root domain should target Germany, or this subdomain should target Germany. You can be very specific, and that's a great way of actually notifying Google as to where that domain should be targeting. So that's hosting. Another top tip is indexing. So it's great that we've picked the right option for ourselves. It's great that we've identified to Google what the country is that we're trying to target with that option. But then indexing is also a priority. So when I say indexing, I mean making sure that all of those pages within a subfolder, subdirectory or root domain are being indexed appropriately to that country. So one way that we can do this is with an hreflang sitemap. So with a regular sitemap, you'd have all of the URLs from your website. Within a sitemap, an hreflang sitemap for an international website, you would have something called an hreflang. So you'd have something that says rel equals alternate, meaning that there's an alternate language of this website. You would then have something called hreflang.de. This identifies the language prefix. So if I was to have a French website, a German website, an Australian website, I have hreflang.de, hreflang.fr, and so on. And then href URL German there basically means that what we've done there is we've identified what the URL is. So what I would include within my sitemap is these 3 main prefixes for all the languages. When Google then reads that sitemap, they'll identify the right content of your website with the right country and also the right language. So that's really important. My next top tip, and possibly my favourite, is audience profiling. Now, audience profiling is very, very important. If we were taking an example, Coca-Cola, they do this really well. So with Coca-Cola, they have a website in Germany, the UK, France, Switzerland, different countries in Africa, all over the place. So what they do really well is they look at each of those countries and they say, okay, the people in this country are really interested in a certain type of Coca-Cola. In another country, they might be interested in a different product. So they really look at what is the best way of setting up their site and advertising their products to the user in the right countries. An example, just to take you through this, is North Korea and the US. Not being too political, what we have here is 2 very different countries with very different morals. So we have obviously your left wing and your right wing here. As an example, we can see that with North Korea, the booking process for North Korea may be that, okay, all they want to know is 3 steps to buying their product. So if I was looking to buy an Xbox in North Korea, what I would do is I would find the product. So I find the product here. I would then look to find out where I can book, and then I would look to pay. So it's a very simple 3-step method to payment. 1, know the product, what it is, how can I pay for it, the quickest and simplest way to pay for it. 3, buy. That's fine if you're from North Korea, but if you're an American, would that suit the same needs? No. If you're American, you might come through a video as such. You might then go to find a product and add it to a basket. From there, you might think, okay, that's great, but I want a game to go with my Xbox. So I go back and I look at reviews. I then see a game I like, so I then go and buy it. And it's this simple process of adding things to the basket, going back, watching videos, researching content that highlights a clear difference between these 2 countries. I may then, once I've added all the things to my basket and I'm happy with my booking, go and pay. And then it really doesn't end here. In this market, again, it comes back to this main point, hitting them again with that rich media. So this is just highlighted 2 ways of actually targeting those users. Again, video and sound is a great way to target the US, whereas North Korea, you might want to look for really clear calls to action. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. It's also really important to get the aesthetics of your website right, because if you're looking at a website in North Korea, you don't want a website that's got all these videos and these photos and click here to like and share and things like that. I'm not saying that is completely what they don't want to do, but it's a lot more along the lines of this country here. So that was just one of my top tips for audience profiling. Once you've identified the audience and the right way to target them internationally, we need to look at how we can, one thing, measure our results internationally, but, are we getting the right visibility? So to measure, we need to ensure that we target the right keywords and do the right research in that country appropriate to their needs. So again, if I was to say I was trying to sell cheap cars in, say, North Korea, as another example, am I looking at the right keywords? Am I looking at the right products that the Korean market likes? Whereas if I'm looking to sell cheap cars in the UK, am I selling the right products again? You know, what is the trends out there? What kinds of things that people are looking for in those particular countries? Once you've identified the keywords you want to target, it's really important to optimise your website for those different needs. So again, as I mentioned before in the audience profiling, it's really important to identify the keywords for each landing page, optimise them towards those keywords, and make sure that we're appearing in the search results in a competitive way with the others in that market. Once we've done that, we need to look to A/B test. So when reaching out to an international audience, we need to make sure we do it through constant testing. One great way of doing this is looking at, okay, we're going to target the Australian market, what things do they respond really well to? So one thing we can test is, your call to action, so buy now, buy here. Maybe have one, as an example, a nice big red box saying buy now. Maybe another one which is more of a textual link, which is more soft sell, click here to add to your basket. These kinds of things may seem small, but when looking at e-commerce and e-commerce tracking, these things can actually make a big difference. We can also test videos, images, lots of different things that can enhance the purchase decision. And then finally, influencers. It's great to do all these things, but we need to look to really reach out to the people in that market, in that country, that are going to have the biggest affiliation with your fans and with your brand advocates and such. So a great brand that does this is Pepsi. In the UK, they might use David Beckham as their face. Everyone in the UK knows David Beckham is someone a lot of people look up to. Whereas if you're from Jamaica, they might use Usain Bolt to advertise their products. These kinds of things might sound, again, quite small, but they do make a big difference. Also, when you do your outreach and your more local social targeting, make sure you get conversations going with those people in those different countries that are going to make that difference. So those are my top